Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing well, Clayton. How are you doing this beautiful quarantine afternoon?
I am absolutely wonderful now that I'm on the line with you. For people that don't know you, though, what's your name? What do you do? Who do you work for?
I'm Jonathan Paykoc. I don't like talking about myself, so that's always going to be a challenge for me. But neither here nor there. I have this fancy title called a Technical Solutions Architect in cybersecurity. That's my official title. Um, I'm in Denver, Colorado, kind of born and raised here.
Jonathan and I actually worked together. Well, we were paired together for a year, but we've known each other for 4, 5, 6 years, somewhere around there, right? It seems if I'm wrong on that, it just seems that long. We've known each other for a while, and both kind of metalheads. And we were going to go to a concert this summer together. He was actually going to fly into Austin, and well, it didn't work out. So that's a bummer because of COVID. But I'm sure many of you out there are making plan changes as a result of that. But so Jonathan, so you work for Cisco. How long have you been with Cisco?
I've been with Cisco for 6 years now. Before I was at Cisco, I worked in operations, which meant just working for an organization, making sure their networks are up and running and secure, um, taking pages late at night, fixing problems, introducing problems. I do make mistakes, as everyone else does, but some of mine have taken down networks, but I've brought networks back up as well. Humans are inherently what's a good word that I'm looking for? Imperfect. that's nicer than saying stupid. And sometimes you do stupid things, and I sometimes do them, and I still do them. But luckily now I'm on the pre-sale side of the house, so I normally don't introduce. Actually, I never introduce problems into a customer's environment because I'm far more careful than I was in an operational environment. So that's kind of my career. I've done anything from website design to help desk stuff, troubleshooting printers for leasing agents at Archstone Smith. They were a big real estate investment trust, so helping them with their printers and making sure they can log in, can do their passwords. I've done network engineering, operations, enterprise architecture, security architecture, wear a ton of different hats. And that kind of is a good way to get into security, is having a broad base of knowledge so that you experience and know a little bit more about the overall cybersecurity landscape.
So has your whole career been in IT, or did you start off doing something different when you first entered the workforce?
So it's kind of a weird trajectory. I wanted to, well, your son's just starting out going into college. You kind of pick a major, know what you want to do. And a lot of kids at that age, you just don't know. You just kind of pick things. And I was passionate about chemistry, passionate about biology. So I figured what careers could I get into that translates well into that love of chemistry, that love of biology, microbiology, et cetera, et cetera. And I stumbled upon pharmacy. Pharmacy is a good one because you have to know organic chemistry, you've got to know microbiology, you've got to know anatomy and physiology, all those good things. Unfortunately, as I'm doing this, or fortunately, because I didn't have any student loans, I worked throughout my entire college experience, 40 hours a week, and then sometimes 12 to 15 hours of credit load. It's hard to maintain A pluses in organic chemistry 2, microbiology. It just doesn't happen. And then when you apply to those colleges to go to like pharmacy college or pharmaceutical college, they don't really look twice at you. So I had to make a pivot. And my pivot was something that I've always been passionate about, something I've always dabbled in throughout my entire life since I was a little kid. I remember going through an Apple programming class at Front Range Community College way back when. But I like to solve puzzles, and that's why I'm in cybersecurity. Like I'm passionate about solving problems at the end of the day, and security, engineering, operations, those are all just, we're all trying to solve problems. And what can we do to solve them the most efficient way? So that's why I gravitated towards that. Um, that's kind of why I'm here, and I'll continue with my story. But you had something that you wanted to add
Oh
in
no.
there.
So actually, the question was: is so obviously you were on kind of the IT networking and systems operations side of things, and at some point you made a decision to pivot towards cybersecurity. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are looking at that just simply because, I mean, cybersecurity, it's a hot field right now. There's a major deficiency in the number of people that are involved in cybersecurity. So I'm sure some people are out there saying, look, is cybersecurity right for me? What made you think it was right for you, and what made you make that transition? Was it natural, or was it something deliberate that you set out to do?
It was deliberate and natural, something I've always kind of gravitated towards throughout my entire career. It's a better way of solving problems, and that's probably not the right terminology, the right verbiage, but at the end of the day, being a network engineer or network architect, you're basically a plumber. You're moving packets from this point to this point in the most efficient manner. You're sometimes directing them in other directions, but I wanted to do some more than that. The cybersecurity aspect is kind of like the Mad Magazine, red hat, white hat, spy versus spy, where you've got someone that's malicious trying to do some bad things, and you're trying to figure out what he's doing and prevent him from either continuing with that behavior or stopping it in its tracks, maybe hacking back, et cetera, et cetera. So that was something that's always been interesting to me, and seeing what people can do to take control of machines. I'm a mirthful, shenanigans-centric individual, and I like to play pranks on people. So when I was doing help desk things, I was playing pranks on people with PCs and being able to use keyloggers as an example to find passwords. Uh, Not saying that I ever exploited anyone in that form
Yeah,
or
I was going to say,
fashion.
you do realize this is being recorded, right, Jonathan?
I do realize that this has been recording, but it was mostly for fun, changing their backgrounds, changing
Sure.
their screensavers, all like, you know, how would you say, benign types of behaviors. But there were times that, you did that to the wrong person and you got in big trouble because they took it a little too seriously. Like
Yeah.
launching a golf program from an email that they had to play, and then launching some other side things that messed up their machines, that gave them random cursor movements, et cetera, on an April Fool's Day, and that just put them over the limit. That put them over the edge. So you got to be careful.
I did one that I think you'll appreciate. It's I had a good buddy of mine who he ticked me off, and I warned him. I said, if you continue to tick me off, you're going to pay the price. And he did it again. So this is early on in kind of email days before there were real spam filters and those sorts of things. And so I had a Linux machine, and I used SendMail to send him 30,000 messages in about the course of about 2 seconds. And suddenly he looks at his inbox, and now he's got 30,000 messages he has to deal with. So, it's things like that you got to be careful with the IT guys. And I had some help. Luckily I went into the systems guys, and I was like, so I got to get this guy back. Help me out, help me write a script for it. So I totally understand that. So you made a deliberate decision to get into cybersecurity. Now you obviously went from operations and into, we're going to call it sales, but I think more of a consulting role is probably more of what you do than just kind of pure sales. So for those that don't really kind of understand the difference, at least at Cisco, so I'm a cybersecurity specialist. I would be paired with someone like Jonathan, and in fact have been paired with Jonathan in the past, where he's more the technical liaison. And although I am technical, he's far, far more technical than me, and he's going to help take a customer kind of through their technical journey. So I really do look at your role as more consultative than sales. But that was a big difference for you, right? That was a big transition to go from operations to, let's call it sales side. But I also know that you love it too. So maybe talk about the differences there and how difficult was that transition?
Yeah, it was a huge, difficult transition, something I've always kind of dreaded. Everyone always told me, like, yeah, you should go into sales. Sales is awesome. There's so many cool things you can do. You get to travel. You get to see the world. You get to walk on beaches. I'm kidding. You don't get to walk on beaches unless you're really, really good at what you do, which I'm not.
That's true.
But the big transition is talking in front of people. In operations, you can kind of shield yourself from that. you always are selling in an operations environment. So, hey, we need to deploy some new thing, some new cybersecurity suite, or new firewall, new edge security. So you're going to try to sell up the chain of management to get your projects approved. You've got some more fun stuff to work on, because it's not fun to work on the exact same thing over and over again. You constantly want to be improving your skills. You constantly want to be improving the workplace that you work in, making it more secure, making it perform faster, stronger, et cetera, et cetera. So that was like the biggest piece for me, is taking that convincing skill, that personal influential piece, and then talking to people outside of the organization, so a customer. So, hey, you have this edge security project. Here's some things that I suggest you do to help you with that edge security project. So that was huge. Another thing that still terrifies me to this day, and it's okay that we're recording this, is talking in front of large groups of people. So we do these things called Cisco Connect events. They're mini Cisco Lives, where we pick a subject either for 45 minutes all the way up to maybe an hour, hour and a half, and we are in front of a bunch of people, sometimes up to 200 people, talking about that specific thing that we've picked. And to this day, it still terrifies me. I still get nervous. And in order to kind of overcome that, I've introduced a lot of my mirthfulness, my jokes, my memes, to make some people laugh in the audience. And I find that if I'm able to do that, I create some mental connection with those people, and it makes those presentations, those demonstrations far easier for myself than in a comfortable environment where 200 people are staring at me and I'm trying to envision they're not wanting to be there, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been
it is
my
interesting
most
you bring
difficult
that up.
piece.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because I've actually been in those presentations with you quite a few times and watched you give those presentations. And as someone that's watching you that may not know you, you look completely at peace with what you're doing. And I know that from our conversation, something that you've really focused on trying to work your craft. But you've got a really interesting way about how you do presentations that I think is both memorable and informative. But I'll kind of skip to the punchline and say, people come to me and say, I'll mention something about Jonathan, and they'll say, oh, wait, is he that cartoon guy? It's like, yes, he is. So talk just for maybe a brief couple seconds. What do you do in your presentations that you think is unique? Because I know what it is, but I'm curious what you think it is.
I try to align my presentations to pop culture, or just things that are relevant in today's day and age. I find that when you're learning some difficult topic, to be able to kind of boil it down to some simplistic terms or images resonates more as a attendee for a specific conference or a talk. So if someone's describing, I don't know, the theory of relativity, which I am not going to reference right now because Jonathan doesn't know about physics.
At least you know it's physics.
At least I know it's physics, but to be able to like boil that down to some essential, I don't know, pictures or graphs, so that it creates some form of memorable experience for someone that's in the audience, to me, that is more valuable than just trying to bog someone down with a regurgitation of a technical document.
And for people watching this, you need to know it's not a genuine Jonathan Paykoc presentation unless it's got at least one Rick and Morty reference in it. Is that true? So if you ever see Jonathan give a presentation and it doesn't have Rick and Morty, you have to know it was completely done by the marketing team and he had nothing to do with it. So I'm going to pivot just a little bit, though. I'm sorry?
Or Voltron, or
something, right?
Like Star Wars. Star Wars is a good one because there's just so much material to draw from.
You've got a whole list. I can tell you put thought to this. So we're going to pivot just a little bit. I think a lot of people that are out there, as they're thinking about the potential of getting into cybersecurity, or maybe if they're looking at where they're at today and maybe they want to do something different, like for instance move into sales or move into a higher level of operations, one question that comes up quite frequently is, well, what education should I pursue? it's interesting because you preferred a slightly different way of going than I think most people would. Most people would say, look, if I'm in a technical role, in order to get another technical position, I should focus on yet another technical degree or certification. In your case, you went for your master's degree in business. Could you maybe talk for a second about why did you make that decision and why has it been good for you?
So we'll wind back about 2006. I was working for a subprime lender, AmeriQuest Capital Holdings Corporation, and kind of hit a wall. I was a senior network engineer. I wanted to possibly work on my CCIE. I was having conversations with my boss at the time, Craig Shankman. And Craig had also gotten his MBA, I believe, from Pepperdine. And his recommendation to me was, Jonathan, you're already doing the engineering side of the house. You know what you're doing there. CCI is just going to kind of reinforce that. It's going to be valuable, but my recommendation to you, since I've done this, is go learn more about the business, do some networking, learn about accounting, learn about finance, learn deeper economics, so that when you get to the position that I'm in, director, VP, et cetera, you can talk to the business, you can help influence the business, you know return on investment, you know payback periods, all those other things. You're going to be far more valuable with that broad set of experience than you'd be as someone who knows the ins and outs of BGP or OSPF or EIGRP or VRFs. So that's why I kind of took that path. I took his recommendation. I believe it was a good recommendation because it helped me with negotiation skills. That's a big thing about doing anything in life. Everything's a negotiation. One of my favorite classes in the master's degree was an entire class based around negotiation. So not being able to take someone's first offer, knowing some caveats and some things to look out for in basic negotiations, and that's benefited me a lot more than learning about the ins and outs of BGP and the full TCP stack, et cetera, TCP/IP stack.
Well, I have to say, as a graduate of Colorado State University, I will say the only mistake that you made was your choice of schools. So for those who don't know, Jonathan went to the rival school, which is CU Boulder. And I say rival because, and yet we haven't given you guys much of a rivalry in the last few years when it comes to, mini sports. So that's kind of depressing to me. Where do you really see the current state of the cybersecurity industry? And you can really attack this either way you want. I mean, level of talent, job opportunities, or even just the technology moving forward. I'll let you freeform and decide how you want to answer that because there's so many ways to answer that.
There's a lot of different ways to answer that. It's getting better. Not saying that it was always bad, but in terms of what products can do, there's been a lot more on the integration side of the house. So different tools integrate with other different tools. They share event data. They share correlative behaviors across that. So that's been helpful. So it's been far more collaborative than it used to be. So I like that. Solving problems for customers is good. But what we've seen over the last few years is attacks have just ramped up. There's been some massive attacks that have cost the world billions and upon billions of dollars. So we're still not there yet. And then that's led to, of course, a deficit of talent in the talent pool because more people need these cybersecurity engineers because it's so, easy for script kiddies and other people to get into the attack side of the house. Bitcoin has helped make it so people can ransom things anonymously. You don't have to go rob a bank anymore. You can do it from the beach if you really want to, right? Utilizing some pre-made tools. You don't really have to have any coding background to do all these things. So neither here nor there, it's still a very dangerous environment and we still have to be very vigilant about what we're doing there.
So Jonathan, one of the things that I think you bring is a very interesting perspective for people that might be watching this, which could be, someone that's early in career or maybe even in high school considering a career in security, all the way to maybe someone that's in operations and thinking about making a transition to sales or vice versa. Let's really focus on what I think your experience has been, which has been moving from operations into sales. If you were going to give that person one piece of advice that's more on the technical side and wants to move into a consultative side, what would you ask for them to focus on?
Maybe take a Toastmasters class to get really good with talking with people and doing presentations in front of people. That's always a good recommendation. Those presentation tips that I build into my overall PowerPoint slides when I'm giving big presentations, that's based off of some advice that was given to me by another engineer, Steve Kramer, who was a mentor at the time. I was drowning when I first came to Cisco trying to give these 100-page PowerPoints in front of customers. They weren't my PowerPoints. And I'm trying to read from slides. I'm trying to give them the information that I think was valuable to them. But at the end of the day, Kramer sat me down and said, you know what, Jonathan, if you don't create and curate your own material, you're not going to know the material. So that's one of the impetuses and one of the drivers behind me adding memes and pop culture into my presentations is that, to me, it's memorable, it's hilarious, it makes it more relevant. So then I've got these memory tricks and tips that help me deliver the content that's more relevant, not more passionate about it. When I'm more passionate and happy about something, then it comes across as far more intriguing, more relevant, and impactful than me just regurgitating someone else's material. So that's my big tip is, take some public speaking classes, take some presentation classes, because you spend quite a bit of time doing that in front of customers. And having those skills will differentiate you from other people in the industry that may not have those skills.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to leave you with one final question, and I think I know how you're going to answer this, but I really need you to pick a battleground here. So okay. You can only pick one, firewalls or endpoint protection. Which do you choose?
It's a hard one, but at the end of the day, what organizations, advanced persistent threat actors, and other attackers are trying to do or get access to the endpoints. So you have to have a good endpoint client, but it's not just that at the end of the day. It's going to be a whole suite of things to protect you.
Now you're hedging. You had to pick one.
Well, if I pick one...
Hot off the press, Jonathan hates firewalls. That's exactly what everyone heard. That's what we're going to end on. Hey, Jonathan, thanks so much, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for sharing some of your wisdom and your insight and your experience with everyone. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Clayton. Thanks for your time today.
You got it, man. Take care.
You too.